You Booked It, episode 42. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world. I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainers 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to be a successful entertainer. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainers. We are here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating and review. And to show our appreciation for your, fingers crossed, 5-star rating and review, I will give you a shout out on an upcoming episode. And now, let's do this. Okay, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Geraldine Metayer. Are you ready for this, Geraldine?
I'm so ready.
Beautiful. Geraldine has worked in multiple cabarets in Paris, France, including the famous Le Nouvel Ève. She has also had the pleasure of touring both Europe and North America in various shows, which led her to dancing on cruise ships throughout Scandinavia. 5 years ago, she moved to Las Vegas and has since performed in many shows up and down the Strip, including Jubilee, 53X, Tournament of Kings, and Fantasy. Geraldine, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Fill in the gaps, who you are, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
Okay, so I've been, as you said, working a little bit everywhere. My dance training was in Montreal, and this is where I spent most of my time as a young adult. And today in Vegas, I had the pleasure of working mainly as a performer. And I've been so lucky to always find work in the different shows of the Strip. And right now I'm full-time at Fantasy.
Ah, fantastic. And let's move on to the next section here. And look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What's your favorite quote you'd like to share with our listeners?
So I'm going to say for me, I don't know if it's so much a quote, but the idea that everything in life is temporary. And this has been helpful to me, that, this idea that nothing lasts forever. And it's a good thing if you're in a bad situation, struggling, that it's not going to last forever. Things change. If you're having a great time, if you're experiencing something incredible in your life, remembering that it's also not going to last forever, I think is very helpful to really appreciate it and make the most of it.
Yeah, I love that. I love putting things into perspective because, we think in our brains, I think sometimes that we want to always live those highest highs. We never want to experience the bad times, right? We want those
For
to be done
sure.
and quick, but the good times, we want them to last and last. But really, you can't really enjoy the highs if you don't experience the lows. And you really need that complete mix to live a fun and fulfilled life, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's, this is how we grow from it as well. Really this idea that you're never stuck, like things constantly evolve and change. And that's what life is, I think, for everybody. It's like that.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to this next section. And of course, you are an entertainer. I am an entertainer. And I think you'd agree that this industry is one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries in existence.
Mm-hmm.
And you know as well as I that in order to create and to have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, of course, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being on stage, performing to those audiences, there are also our fair share of obstacles and challenges and failures that we are going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
Okay, so I think in my case, the main thing was that I got knee surgery twice because I torn my ACL, and among other things, it was a pretty bad knee injury. And the first graft didn't survive, unfortunately. So I went for surgery. I had to be out of work for about 5 months and do rehab, go back to work to end up having the same surgery, something like 3 months later, I think. And that was definitely the biggest low, I think, in my career because I felt so discouraged and defeated at that time because there's nothing you can do. You just need to let the time do its work. Eventually, the second surgery, I think, was a turning point for me because at that point, I knew exactly how the rehab process had to go. I knew exactly what to do to optimize all my chances of recovery. And I ended up getting back to work only 3 months later, when usually with an ACL replacement, they say it can take 6 months to a year
Wow.
to fully heal. And my first gig after that actually was Jubilee. So I got my second surgery in Finland. We moved to the States and I got hired immediately in Jubilee. So that was, that was great to jump back and get back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can only imagine how scary that would have been to have your knees go out. I mean, as a dancer, that's everything, and it's so good that you were able to get it recovered, even if it took two times.
I've been lucky. Overall, I'm pretty impressed with the work that was done by the surgeons, and I'm all about science. This is incredible that you can screw your knee like that and still go back to your career. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to the next section, to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
So I think, well, first thing, maybe to put things in context, I started my dance training when I was 18, which is a little bit later than for some people. I haven't always danced in my life. And I kind of stumbled across dance a bit by accident, decided at 18 that this is what I wanted to do. And after 6 months of intensive training, it became very clear to me that, oh my God, this is it. This is what I'm going to do now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a traditional, or not a traditional, I have a similar experience with my discovery of dancing in the arts because I played sports growing up, and it wasn't until I was 17 and a half that I discovered dancing. And like
Oh,
you, it came upon me kind of by accident, and I went with it. And like you, studied really hard, really
mm-hmm.
intensely, and was able to make things happen. And I think that's so important for anyone listening that is aspiring to be an entertainer, do this professionally, that you don't have to start when you're 3 years old. There's
Right.
so much you can do once you're a bit older, and you can choose to do that, and you can have a really serious, super successful career.
Yeah, I agree. It's like everything, right? If you put your mind to it and you're ready to put a lot of work and effort and be dedicated, I think everything is possible.
Absolutely. And I want to piggyback on that question real quick. And let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life? And what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
I think that would be my very first official show gig that I booked. And I was still in school in Montreal. I was still in my dance training. It was maybe my third year. So I was 21, 22. and it was for the opera La Traviata that was played in Ottawa. And regular big audition. The choreography was mainly new classical, and got a call back. We were maybe only 10 at that point, and then they only kept 4 girls. And that was, first of all, incredible project because it was an opera, so opera venue with the orchestra. There was something like 40, 50 singers. It was incredible, but I had to ask time off from school to be able to do this gig. And that was actually the funny paradox here, is that I finally booked a gig that I was training so hard for, to be able to dance professionally. But then my school had a huge problem with me leaving the training for a few weeks, because at that point they still consider you a student and you shouldn't be working. So that's also, I think, very representative of what it is to be an artist and how you have to constantly, navigate between those two things, between the training opportunities, and then when the real work comes, you also have to just jump on that.
Absolutely. And what was the end result? How did your school handle it?
I think we negotiated something. I was able to do the rehearsal because it was in Montreal before leaving for the show in Ottawa. And I think they were just being cool with me eventually.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you got to press it because there definitely is it's a mindset, I guess, with the education part of this world and the training part of things that people want you to complete their programs for various reasons, but ultimately you're doing it so you can book the job. And if you book the job, I guess depending on what you want out of your career and out of life, it can certainly be challenging whether or not to continue staying in school. Do you take a break from school? Do you pass up the gig? What is it? I mean, it's definitely a hard decision
Yeah,
to make.
absolutely. And it was a little bit tricky for me at that point, because I am a strong believer, of really intensive training and focusing on that, and eventually the gigs will come later when you're ready for them. But when some opportunities like this happen, you have to make a choice for yourself, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And of course, we are amidst this crazy time, this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
So I've been lucky enough during this period of time where everybody lose all their jobs. So my show closed. The other gigs I did were canceled. The club I've been dancing at for 3 years also had to close. So lost all my work. But because I'm also currently studying, I'm doing my undergrad to go in psychology eventually next year. I've been very busy with just homework. So for me, this time hasn't been bad. Actually, I was able to make the most of it. I'm not sure how Vegas will recover from this. It's a really good question.
Yeah, I guess we will find out, but it's really good that, I mean, you had that time. And I mean, I guess I know you. So I know for a fact that you are busy a lot. You put yourself out there, book your schedule. So I can imagine that in some ways it's kind of a welcome break to now concentrate on the school side of things.
It was not bad. I think when the pandemic drama started, it was middle of March, and I hadn't had one day off in something like 12 weeks. So it was welcome. Yes.
For sure. Well, let's move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
I think simply because I started so late, I was a little bit afraid of the judgment and, oh my God, is there even a chance for me to do it? I'm already 18. So just self-doubt.
Sure. And the second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
The technical aspect of dancing is just a very small part of your career. and you should definitely not focus too much on that. There's a lot of other skills you're going to have to develop as well.
Absolutely. Of course, we all need that foundation of the technique and the skill set for whatever it might be, if it's singing or dancing or acting. But really, you get hired on so much more than the technical aspect of things. It's what you bring to the table, your energy, your feeling, your performance ability.
Yes. And also just other skills, like, can you work with other people? Are you nice? Are you reliable? Are you punctual? Can you fix costumes? Are you, can you react spontaneously to fix a problem? All those little things really matter. And the technical side of dance, sometimes we completely lose it, and it's really not that important at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. And the third question, what is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
I think what I've always been doing before that whole situation and during is yoga. For me, it really keeps my body and my mind uh, aligned, and it's very beneficial to me. I would really recommend it for everybody.
Love that. And the fourth question, what is the best resource, whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, a podcast, maybe a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now?
So, with that, I'm not very good. I usually feel for me the best resources have always been simply people, going to people that I admire or who are successful, who are mentors. And for me, those are the best cues I could ever have.
I love that. Nothing beats real life experience and learning from that.
Real people. Yeah.
All right. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
Well, I would probably like to start a little bit earlier, as I said, but you know what? I think I might keep things the same, because I also believe things happen when they're meant to happen, and I had a really good career. I'm really happy with what I managed to do and where I've been and the people I met. Oh my God, it's everything. The people you meet, it like. With your work, it's everything.
Absolutely. And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in the industry that you'd like to leave with everyone?
We have to be kinder to ourselves. It's the industry is already competitive enough that you don't need to constantly compete against yourself, and I think we could all gain by being a little bit more patient with ourselves.
Absolutely. I could not agree more with that. And sometimes I think one of the easiest or worst culprits, rather, the easiest things to do and the worst culprits is Instagram or social media. And we start
Hmm.
we start playing the comparison game and it's not beneficial to anybody.
It's not, and it's really easy to fall in that rabbit hole. But at the end of the day, it's also not real. So I think we really need to keep that in mind, that this is not a representation of people's life, and just focus on yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. And to wrap up this interview, it is time to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yes, I'm pretty horrible with social media. I just have Facebook that I don't really even use so much for professional purposes. You're going to find mainly pictures of my dog. So if you want to look for me, I'm going to be on Facebook, but that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Well, Geraldine, thank you so much for joining me today on this interview. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode. we have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.